Okay, we are on Kapitel 40. Mem. We started it already. We didn't get too far into it, though, I don't think.
Thank you.
This is really a beautiful Kapitel when you start to get into it. So as we said, it's the it's kind of an anticipation of the Geula, Asida. So,
well, it's very applicable to right now, I guess.
Yeah, sure. It's exactly the kind of mentality we should be working towards.
Pasuk? 40.
I just want to review. Gimel. I think we ended like the Dalet or Hay, but just want to review something on Gimel. Says here, "Vayaleni miboy shuoin mitit hayuven vayukem al sela raglai koinen shai." So we explained that the Vayaleni miboy shuoin. These are different forms of klippa, the sitra achra. That's always trying to to get in the way and take from the shefa, to take away from the brachas and everything, and vayokam al sela raglai koinen ashirai. So this is the idea of netzach v'hoid. There's the two spheres that are dealing with that are compared to the legs, and there's a pasuk that says Ragleha Yordis Movis. That this is in the Klippa. There's the Klippa side. There's this idea of the legs going down into like descending into this murky area, associated with death and that kind of thing. And so he says, so because of this tendency is not able to look at into the Zer Anpin, so we want to be lifted up to the level of Ashirai, which is referring to Kesses. So that's really, getting up to the highest level and putting the feet on solid ground. So this is raising the feet up and establishing them and putting them on the Sela, which is this
rock.
Solid, solid fundamental. He says that there is a yitem befi shir chodash tehilo lelekeni yiri rabim v'yirui v'yivtechi b'Hashem. So that Hashem should put a new song into my mouth, and the shir chodash is also talking about the Geula. It says that shir chodash, the P is gematria tzaddik. The tzaddik is always talking about Yisod, is talking about this mashpia that we get to the level where we're being mashpia, and chodash is talking about the level of chokhmah, which is actually the gematria of 12 times the Shem Havaya. 12 is significant because the 6 spheres times
12 times 26.
12 times 26 is 312, which is the gematria of chodash, with adding 2.
12 times 26 is the gematria of what?
Chadash.
Shir Chadash, Hashem Chadash.
Okay, and then there's Tila Elokeinu, so Malchus is Elokeinu, it's talking about the Shechina, and Tehillim is also the idea that now it's becoming, the whole idea is to prepare the Shechina to be ready for the idea of a Zivik, to be able to bring the Yichud, which is the whole Geila is based on that. The idea of this Yichud that's coming to bring everything together, the Zohar and the Keva, and the whole thing together. And then he says Yiri Rabim ve'Yirui. So this word Rabim comes back a few times in the course of the Kapitel, and in this case, he's talking about the Rabim is talking about the Netzitzin HaKedoshim that are spread out in the Klippas. So we know that this is one of the major the major tachlis of Gula. In order for the Gula to come, all these sparks that are distributed throughout the world in Gullus among the Goyim have to be gathered up and reunited. So that can be talking about, this is one thing we see that in Shamas of the Gerim, that we have to go like magnets, throughout the world and collect these netzitzim that are caught in the Gerim. It could be in terms of even, netzitzim that are caught in food and captured in various things, by making a bracha on a food or a bracha on a particular place, you're elevating the sparks in that particular place.
Opening a Chabad house in Mecca.
Okay, sounds like a good idea.
North Korea.
And also the idea of the Seres HaShotim, that are also somewhere.
Sorry,
You know,
could you...
the Seres HaShotim, the 10 tribes, the last tribes, they have to
So
be
what is
brought
the
back.
word you use? Aseret
Shvatim.
Shvatim.
Yeah. And that's interesting because also the 12 of the 12 Shvatim is that's the 12 times the Vayim.
I was asking about
Right.
Pashtin.
Yeah. One of them. That's one of the things. So he says here, Vayirui vayivtechi Vashem. So he says that is talking about a kind of a progression through Yira, Bituchan, and Vekas. So it's kind of, there's an aliyah, there's an elevation going place that has to go through those levels. You have to have Yira, which is fearing Hashem that He exists and that you feel His presence, you feel an awareness of Hashem, which is really Yira. Bituchen is trusting Him, so we actually can rely on Him and we depend on Him. And the Dveikus is coming. This is the Shem Havai itself, which is coming close to Him and Punim, this idea of being able to have a relationship. Or he says that the Yirim Rabim, that the Rabim is referring to the 70 Surim. That the 70 Malachim in the Beis Shalmala, which are generally not too friendly, and so
Are they
that
friendly to each other?
no, probably not. I don't see the goyim being too good with each other either. So exactly the achas. So it's the mula ha'uretz deya, so that even the 70 surim will be won over. In other words, they also, the Umas HaOlam will also come to be b'sholem with you.
The Satan?
Yeah, the Satan is
Edom.
The Satan is Edom, right? Esav, and he talks about that here also. And it's a matter of turning him around also. So, even the Sitracha is going to eventually be reconciled or going to be... that's the Hamtukas Adinim. That's the whole thing we're talking about is Hamtukas Adinim, where there's an aspect of din, and this is also... The Sodim are talking about the Beis Shamala also, which is the idea of din. So the whole idea is to turn it around, to sweeten it and to transform it, as opposed to just making a big war and wiping them all out. It's not the tachlis, before of the Chevlid Mashiach or any of that kind of stuff, but to wipe out the goyim. That's not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to reveal Hashem to the goyim so that they
be a light unto the nations.
Yeah.
A lot of people actually are yearning for that. They want an apocalypse, wipe out the goyim, wipe out everyone, omnicide. Mm-hmm. They're yearning for that. As you said, that's not the tachlis.
Right. He talks about this several times here. If you remember that.
Absolutely not. They're one of God's creations. I think part of Jewish philosophy is that we want the going to become Gerim and for people to do tshuva.
It's not totally become Gerim. The idea is that that the biggest Kiddush Hashem is when an enemy is turned around and become a friend. And when a person who is blind to something is enlightened and comes to acknowledge something that wasn't there before. The idea is not specifically to make everybody a Yid. And I'll expand on that for a minute because this is an important point, and I just recently came to a kind of a higher understanding of this, I think. That the tachlis of a Yid is not just to spread out the true religion. In other words, there are a lot of goyim that even maybe want to become gerim, or there's a lot of Noachites and things like that today that are simply impressed with the fact that compared to their experience of Christianity, for example, they see that Yiddishkeit has the emes, that we have the truth. So some of them are encouraged by that to become Yidden, but a lot of them are content to become Noachites. That means that they don't have to be
quite content. What was the word you used? What word did you say? Quite content.
Yeah, content.
Quite content.
Quite content. Yeah.
Okay.
That they don't have a problem with that. They can stay. It's called a ger toishev, tzadikei umas ha'olam. These things are all
You
good.
only have to keep the 7 laws of Noah.
Right. It's not so easy either. There's a lot of big tikkun in that as well. But the point is that Hashem doesn't demand that of them, and the tachlis of the Yidden are not to go proselyte. Why? Because we have a specific mission to accomplish, which is to be Mekayim the Torah mitzvahs, which is the kiyum of the world. It's the sustenance of the world. It's a continuation of the world. It's what keeps the world going, and it's also it purifies the world because we have this capability to.
Sorry, I don't understand your accent. You said our purpose is the highest mitzvahs to
Torah and mitzvahs.
Torah and mitzvahs. Okay.
Yeah. But why? What is Torah and mitzvahs accomplishing? Because besides bringing us closer to Hashem, and we have the special relationship with Hashem, and all these things, which is true, but in terms of the world, we are the ones that sustain the world. We keep it going. The idea of the korban tumid, these kinds of things are going on in the base of Mikdash. And this whole thing was an idea in which we do with davening every day, is the idea that we are bringing in the life force into the world, we're distributing that life force, we're controlling a lot of these things. Like you said, before, that when there are tsuras among the goyim, things with natural catastrophes and things like that, that it can come down to problems with our own avoidance, that we're not doing our job. So the point is, we have a job to do, and it's not the idea that everybody is intended to do that job. That's not something that's intended everybody. Besides the fact that we have a special family relationship with Hashem in terms of His relationship with the Ovis, and the fact that He promised, the Geula to the Ovis, and that's why we're getting it, not on our own because we deserve it ourselves. But the idea is that that aside from that, we have a specific job to do, and that's why we're called the Mamleches Kohanim v'Goy Kudosh. Just like the Kohanim are only a segment of the a Yisur can't become a Kohen. A Levi can't even become a Kohen, right? A Kohen is was specifically chosen for a specific job to do, and that's what he has to do, and nobody else can do it. So it's just like the idea of we talk about the Am HaNivcha, the chosen people. What are we chosen for? We're chosen to do these mitzvahs that Hashem chose us specifically to do, and we're the only ones who can do it. So we're not trying to get everybody else into join the bandwagon and do our avoida together with us. That's not the point. The point, we're supposed to enlighten them. We're supposed to illuminate them. We're supposed to show to reveal Hashem in the world to everyone. Right? That's the or legoyim, but not to make them Jews. That's not the point of it.
A ger tzedek converts.
Right. That's something else.
He converts to become a Jew. He doesn't convert to Judaism.
Right.
A ger toshav, he's basically a Judaized Ben Noach.
Right. That's true. Now, I want to mention that in my experience,
Ger toshav.
and especially dealing with the kinds of, there's tons of ger here in Tzatz, so this is actually when I came from Minnesota. Also, there's a ton of ger. So what usually you see when a person is willing to go through all the hurdles and jump in, and that's one of the reasons why they put those hurdles in front of them, to really see if they're sure that they really want to do this, because it's a decision for all the doyers after them also, not so if they have more children. A lot of them now are becoming gerim at a later age anyway, so they don't usually end up having. A lot of times they don't have children. But the point is that the idea is a lot of them come back because they feel that they are Jewish already, or they have some kind of a connection to Jews, and they feel like it's almost like they don't have a choice. Like there's something that they just have to do.
They could have been the scattered parts of the
exactly. They could be actually. I heard about a story that there was a woman that came to be that wanted in Europe, I think, that wanted to become a Yeris. And she went to the Rav, and they traced her genealogy back, and it turns out that she was a descendant, like Basrach or Bas, whatever, from Moses Mendelssohn, for like 8 generations before, something like that. So she actually was Jewish already, and then the Bnei Anusim and all kinds of people that are the Falashas, all these people that are coming to become Gerim Davka because they feel that they have a connection to the Jewish people. It's not just because they're enamored of the philosophy and the religion part of it. It's so there's really 2 different things. We have to respect that difference. Yeah. And the people that really, because people who really want to jump over all those hurdles and change their lives so completely and become part of the Jewish people, it's because they have to feel a connection to the Jews themselves, which means that there's a nitzitz in their neshama that has to come back. But in terms of just a philosophical thing,
it's remarkable that Hashem has catered for the ger tzedek, the non-Jew who wants to become a full Jew, and the ger toshav, the non-Jewish ger, who's not a goy, he's a non-Jewish ger. He's not Jewish, but you're obligated to give him sustenance, the nevela. You've got to give him the nevela.
Right.
You can't make him work on Shabbos. He can't make a Shabbos goy, and he can handle your wine.
Right.
This is already a different kind of non-Jewish ger. Very controversial.
I don't understand. What is? There's a toshav ger who's a resident of Israel in Israel, but is not Jewish.
Doesn't have to be resident in Israel.
And he obeys the 7 laws
if he accepts
of Noah.
them,
That's a ger toshav.
Yeah.
I think the Druzen really could be very...
Could be.
could
They
called.
accept more than 7. They accept 7 plus at least one more. They may put tefillin on. They may even have a mezuzah. They keep a form of Shabbos.
So then they're Jewish.
It's a level. No, it's a level above a ben Noach. They don't have to
They
circumcise.
don't have, right.
You know, it's
But if they did and they went to the mikveh, they would become Jewish.
not necessarily. They have to be
They don't have to
makabel.
circumcise, but they can handle our wine.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not doing.
See, it's controversial. You know, the ger toshav. Oh, it's controversial.
No, it's wine is only a matter of the Bezura.
Yeah, I know.
No, it's only not necessary because of the Bezura.
Right, so these
So if they're
people
not
are
at the
accepting
resort.
the one God.
Right. Even a Muslim doesn't make wine as far as I know. The only problem is in terms of Hasidus. It's also
what?
Zayr because of Hasidus.
Hasanis.
Yeah. So that's a question already. You know how that Zayr works in terms. I don't remember those such and such. Whatever. Okay, I just want to make that clear. So that's an important distinction. Anyway. Okay, so Mula or Deya is this idea that the world is going to be filled with the knowledge of Hashem. Before, as Mashiach is coming closer, and in the times of Mashiach, there's going to be a tremendous awareness of Hashem, and nobody's going to
What verse are you
dispute
on
it.
now?
Okay, we're on Asher Hageva.
Ashrei?
Asher Hageva, Asher Sam Hashem
Okay.
Mivtachoi V'Loifuna Elo Rehuvim V'Sutei Chuza. So here again, we repeat the word. Miftacho is Yiftachi. Miftacho is the same word. We are stressing the idea of Betuchen. And Miftacho is the gematria of the word of the Shem Adna, Aleph Dalet Nun Yud, which is an idea of Gvuris. The Shem Adna is associated with Gvuris and Din. So it's associated with Malchus, with the Shechina, and that's so we combine with that with the Shem Adna. It was through this Mivtachoi, Hashem Sam Hashem Mivtachoi. So Mivtachoi is referring to this idea of Din, referring to it in the Shem Adna, but we combine it with the Shem Havaya, which is Rachamim. So now that's the idea of Amtokas Adina. It's taking the Din of the Shem Adna and turning around with the Shem Rachamim from the Shem Havaya. And then you get the Zivik. Then that's another thing, because the Shem Adna is feminine. That's the Shechina. It's feminine, whereas the Shem Havaya is masculine. So you got by combining the Shem Havaya Adna, which is the whole thing you see in a lot of Siddurim, where they put the letters of the Shem Havaya, you can both cases together with the Shem Adna and the Shiluv or whatever. So that's the idea of the Yichud. Of the Shechinte, which is the Shem Havaya and the Shem Adna together, which is referring to Amtokas Adinim, which is turning around the din to become Rachman, which is a very, very good meaning. Okay, so then it says V'loifuna el Rehuvim V'Sutei Chuza. So this is the whole thing about the Shechina, the Malchus, the Shem Adna, because it's combined of din, and we're always having to turn it around. So we can either turn this way or turn that way. So the idea is to turn it all around so that it's turning away from the Ayin Surim, who are demanding din all the time. They're the ones that are demanding. They're bringing the kitchug and then the Beis Shema and everything. They're trying to put the Yidden down, trying to make Xeris and snap. So this is the idea of turning them around, the Ayin Surim, which are called Rehuvim. Rehuvim is referring to the Ayin Surim. Rehuvim is referring to the 70 Surim, right? And which are the Klippus. And it says the right hand is Ishmuel and Mitzrayim, which is called Rahav. In the Sefer Yeshaya, it's called Rahav, so it's referring to that side. So the Ayin Surim are divided between Yishmuel and Esav. So you got 35 of them are going with Esav, and 35 of them are going with Yishmuel.
The 70 is
Surim.
Surim?
Sarim. So the officers. Malachim.
But when you say 35, what about the Chinese and the Indians,
Good question. I don't know.
the Parsim?
Aren't they included?
I imagine they are, but
That's why 35. Or otherwise 35 will side with Ishmael, and 35 will side, tend towards
I don't know.
Edom.
I don't know. He doesn't talk about it. He's saying that the Esav, the Sotei Chuzav, is referring to Esav. So that's 35 on Esav's side. So because the side of Esav is Satan, and Sotei is related to Satan.
So Rehovim is referring to the...
Rehovim is talking about the Yishmael. And they're actually called, in the Sefer Yeshaya, Rohav is Yishmael and Mitzrayim.
Yeah, and Sotei Kozov.
Sotei Chozov is talking about Esav. And that Sotei is related to the word Satan, which is Satan is the Sar of Esav. But it's all referring, but it's all like Chozov is Sheker. So it's all ultimately rooted in Sheker.
Fake news.
Yeah. So it says Ashrei is the Malchus, so it shouldn't turn anymore. That Malchus now should never again have to turn to the 70 Surim, that they're getting any direction from them. The idea is that if they're getting the direction from the right place, then they don't have to turn. Then it doesn't have to turn to the whole idea is to move that away from that. So it's pointing the other direction, so that we aren't influenced by that. So that's the idea of punim b'punim. Is that the idea of the Yichud, where they're facing each other? So that's the idea that we're turning away from the Klippus and the Mikadrin and everything else towards the side of Zer Ampin, and then they're coming together. That's all either side, first top to bottom, but then side to side, which is horizontally, which is the idea of total equality of. We're going to talk about that also, the whole thing of masculine and feminine coming together on a level of panim b'panim, which is side to side. Okay. Rabois osiso atu Hashem Elokai nifloisechu v'machshaveisechu eleni ein aroich elechu agir v'adabeir otzmi misaper. Okay, so Rabois here is referring to Keser. Keser is this incomprehensible sphere at the very top. That's the very beginning of creation. The very first point, just a nakuda. It's something we can't even not even a nakuda yet. It's like the kutzah shel yud. It's something we can't even comprehend at all. So he says by Yetzias Mitzrayim, the makas b'choiros was on the level of Keser. That was like this incomprehensible makkah. That was like that trumped everything. It was the 10th makkah. So from the bottom to the top, Keser is the 10th sphere. So this is talking about something that was like totally overwhelming, and nobody could there's no way of explaining it. Laman Rabois Moisai Eretz Mitzrayim. So Rabois, there's from the Pusik Laman Rabois Moisai Eretz Mitzrayim. That Rabois is referring to the Machas B'choros. So here that Rabois is referring to Keser, because that's on the level of that Makom. Ata Shem Elokai, which is Elokai is Chochma Abba. That's the next sphere down. Hashem Elokai gematria Ayin Beis, and Ayin Beis is the Shem Ayin Beis is the gematria of the Milui Shem Havaya with Yudi, and that's also on the level of Chochma. So a Sisu Rabbi. So the takona of the Chochma is in Keser. Because that's what he's talking about, I think, is just this idea that in order for things to be complete, it has to go all the way up the line. It's got to be everything. It's got to be all. You want to talk about Geula here? Geula doesn't leave out any steps. It's got to go from the top to the bottom, all including everything along the way. So if you're on the level of just like there were 10 makas, you couldn't leave one of them out. You have to. That was the idea. Also, the idea of being, hardening Pharaoh's heart and that whole thing was because he had to go through everything in order to complete the process. You couldn't leave any of those steps out. It all had to be there. He had given up his bechira by then anyway. So there's a whole other issue. So he says, okay, so nifloisechu imachshloisechu. So niflois is the idea of the pella elyoin, which is also keser. That's talking about the pella. And machshloisechu is also the idea of moichem. Machshavus is the mind, is the thought. So we're turning around from keser and chochma, which is the moichem. The intellect is now turning towards us. Ein aroich elechu. So that's talking about anyway. So this is the idea of the intellect against me'irim, is the moichem and me'irim. They're illuminating. So all illumination comes from the level of moich, of seichel. The seichel is shining through. It's illuminating. It's causing everything to lighten up, to brighten up with the light of the seichel. Ein aroich hi lo yochel ha'asil me'roiv ha'eluma me'roiv kedishusai. Ein aroich means there's no way of evaluating it, or no way of measuring, or it's hidden. It's something that's hidden. So you can't possibly judge it or measure it or whatever. This is something, again, totally out of comprehension. Right? So this idea of aroich is giving a value to something. It's beyond value. Agida v'adabeira otzmi misaper. So that is talking about the zivig, he says. That this zivig, on that level, it's talking about that he's going to we are bringing down now. He's going to go into this, that it's happening by itself, essentially. There's this idea that we don't have to bring it down. In the point when you're talking about the Geula, it's Hashem bringing it down.
But I thought we have to arouse it from below.
Right. There is this idea of that's what we're doing here. That's what Tehillim is about. We're davening for this. It doesn't happen yet. When David HaMelech is saying this capital, the Geula is not here yet, but he's envisioning it. He's starting to think about what he's been enlightened to the point where he's starting to understand what really we're talking about, and he's davening for that. And you'll see the very last pasuk is talking about do it already. Don't delay. Make this happen.
Waiting so long.
Right. So the Yisrael L'Sat is definitely there, but when we're talking about when the Geula really gets started, this is something we can't do on our own. We cannot bring down this level of illumination just through our own.
Because of our own lack, or because of God's mercy?
No, that's just because it's too high. We're talking about sichlis here that have just not been revealed. I mean, what does it mean? Hashem will reveal, just like the whole Chachmas Kabbalah is a revelation.
It's not anything that's lacking within us. It's more of just God's supreme will that we can't really fathom. Right. We read in last week's Haftorah, or the week before, about Man Shemoy, like Geula for His sake. He said, I'm not doing it for them, I'm doing it because I don't want the nations to think that I'm not, a God that can save them.
Also said Bishav, he's going to return. He's going to return with the Shechina to Klal Yisrael.
Right, so
it's for him also in a sense. But we're doing it for him, and he's doing it for us. That's what it boils down to, right? He knows we want it, but that's what we have to show that we want it. If we
but it means like that Haftarah meant to say, like, even if we weren't deserving of it, he would redeem us regardless, because that's the order of the world.
Right. So that's the difference between Be'ita and Akishem. So Be'ita means it ultimately has to come at a certain given time.
6,000 years.
But Akishem is we're davening; it should happen before that. So that's how he ends up the capital.
And there's a big difference between a Geula Be'ita and Achishena.
Right.
One is a temple coming down from heaven. The other is it's made of concrete by our own physical hands. A low-grade Messiah riding on a donkey, or a high-grade Mashiach riding on the clouds. And it hasn't been set either way.
Right.
Nothing. It's all cards are on the table.
If you think about it, it could be even a minute. I mean, we have to wait that long, but it could be even a minute before it's supposed to come, and it was not. But the fact is that the Eibishter by Gilus Mitzrayim, it was before the time. It was if he'd waited till the last minute, it would have been maybe impossible. But the point is that Hashem already showed us that the Geula was before the appointed time. So it's Hashem, it'll be next time like that also. But that has to come from us. That's really dependent on our participation. Okay, so Agida v'Adabeira, so Agida is this Mashiach. Like a good asik is a principle of the Gemara, bringing down a wall, this kind of thing. Good asik, or extending something down. So that's the idea of Agida, is the idea that I'm bringing down this light. And Vadabeira and Dibber is the idea of Zivik, of coming together. Okay, and this is the highest level of Zivik that can possibly be. It says that Isham is a Paris in Bala. There's in Gemara Bruchas. There's the idea of a man or woman that the word is used there as Mesaperes. So it's a Mesaper. Zevach mincha loy chafatzta uznaim korisa li oila v'chatua loishu alta. Okay, so this is 3 or 4 things that it's mentioning here: zevach, mincha, oila, and chatua. All these different types of kabbanos. Covers just about everything. So he says that the idea here is that once we're bringing it once this light is coming down from the aura of what's called atika, which is this very atika means like displaced. I mean like separated out. It's like something that's totally remote or unaccessible. Okay, so that light is on such a high level, it's also on the level of Kesser. So that's coming down. So once that's coming down, then we don't need, it's already automatically mechaper the avonis. That's like the level of Yom Kippur. So that already is mechaper for the Averis, and now we don't have to worry about ourselves being mamshich that light anymore. It comes down for itself. Because 9 Korisoli says Oz9 is the idea of what was until now, this idea of Oizen is Shviyas HaKelim. So till now we're in a level of Shviyas HaKelim, which is this trying to repair the damage that was done by the Chet Adam Rishon and the Chet Egel and all the other Chatuim that we did that really broke things up, and going back even to before that, for the original, when the Rizal was in Malchim, the Misi, and this whole thing.
Sorry,
so
can you tell?
The Rizal has a whole thing about which, as far as I've seen, he was the one who originated this particular interpretation. The idea, which again, we're talking about the idea of Hashem revealing things. So the Kabbalah is a revealed thing. It's not something that's what a person can think up on their own. It's something that the different individuals, through history, Hashem has chosen them to reveal, like Nebuah. He's given them these understandings and these things, and even to the point where later generations have gotten higher revelations than previous generations. So it doesn't follow the thing with the Tosh B'Ksav that the further, or even Tosh B'Alpeh, that the further we are from the source, the more we lose. But here, it's the further we get towards Mashiach, the more he reveals, because that light is gradually actually becoming stronger. So this idea that he
could that be related to Ora Ganuz?
Yeah. Well, that's what we're waiting for. Sure. No, that light is becoming more visible as time goes on. And stuff, yeah. But anyways, again, this is so the Arizal was able to reveal certain things that hadn't been revealed to previous generations. So anyway, so you have this whole thing about the 7 kings, the 7 kings of Edom, before Edom, right? There was they died, until they come to the Melech Hadar, the last one. So there was the idea of Shviyas HaKelim, which is it's a whole other story. But anyway, that's where the whole Nitzitzis got spread out. That's because the Shviyas HaKelim. It's like a major explosion. Okay, so it's because he says because I didn't receive this light from the ear of the Adam HaKadmon, which is like the supernal man that precedes everything. Or is it the tzira of, the tzelem lakim. Because the ones that did get from this aspect of oizen of the ear, they did not experience the shvira zakelim, the shvira. They were above the shvira. So there are certain things that did get left out, that weren't affected by shvira. They say that the chishareach was not affected by shvira because in the chait of Adam Rishon, the sense of smell was not involved. So that's there's a few different ramifications from that. But anyway, so he says, because the tikkun, now that I've come to the level of the tikkun, which is what we're talking about here, so everything's fixed. So now I was able to be makabel from this level of the ears, and therefore I'm getting this level, able to makabel, and that's another big thing. Is the idea is that it's not enough for Hashem to want to reveal to us the light, but we have to be on a level to be able to makabel the light. We have to be able to. So this will be talked about in what's the say? In Meragoyla, right? Meragoyla, right? That it's not just a matter of how much Hashem wants to teach us and wants to let us know, but it's a question of our ability to be able to absorb it. So here we're talking about this. What the amazing thing that's going to happen when Mashiach comes is that our eyes are going to be opened and our ears are going to be opened, and all of a sudden we're going to be able to absorb things that we never thought were possible, and it's a transformation that's going to have to take place. It's kind of an inner transformation. Exactly how, I'm not sure of. Okay, so this zev of mincha, oil, and chatua are corresponding to the 4 patzufim. It says that's That's four parzufim as being the masculine and feminine on the level of Chochmah and Bina, and also on the level of Zeranpim, which is Tiferes and Malchus. Okay. Or he says, yeah, there's four moichin anyway that are going to be brought down. So we won't need this. We won't need all these kobonis. Okay. Next pasuk. So he says, "Oil v'chatur lo alta." You didn't ask me. So the way he says it, "Zevach mincha lo chafatzta," because you didn't want us to bring zevach mincha because we don't need it. And oil v'chatur lo alta. You didn't ask for us to bring the oil v'chatur because we don't need it anymore. It's not necessary for that tikkun. And azamarti hine bosi memegilas sefer kusiv ulai. So that is saying. So at the time that we're going to have this light from this tika, from this very, very high level, so I became on the level of a marti, and a marti, listen to this, this brilliance of how he's making these connections here. He says, a marti is from the evolution from Emircha. The pasuk in Dvorim, it says, Emarta yom, Emircha yom. He's talking about how the Hashem is talking, and over there it's very difficult to know what the pshat really is, but it's the idea of raising up, of making the Eden so great and so choshev and so important and such a high level, right? So that's the whole idea of Hamircha, the Hamarta. The word Hamarta is used in that context as being an idea of isnasis, of being a aim loy. Megillah Sefer is the ateros of Yesod Abba. It's the malchus of Yesod of Abba, of Chochmah again, and from there it's Mesaken, the malchus, the level of malchus, it's the Shechina, and Yesod of Abba Yesad Brata. There's an idea that Chochmah, the level of Chochmah, can be Mesaken the Shechina, malchus, even though there is a tremendous distance between them. But the Chochmah is this idea that the Chochmah, the Abba, the father, establishes the daughter. So the Abba is referring to Chochmah, and the Brat is referring to the Shechina. So Megillah is Yesod Abba, that's the mashpia of Chochmah. So the Chochmah is mashpia on Malchus, and that's what's Kusiv Olai. That's talking about this, that it's meir, that it is illuminating on me, on the Shechina, which is on the level of Kusiv. All right, whatever. Weiter. So this again, this may be actually what turns around the whole thing, is that when the Rutzen is referring to Kesed, right? That's the very highest level. Rutzen, the Hashem had to have the Rutzen to create the world is the very first step. In order to create the world, he had to want the desire to create the world, the Rutzen. So the whole point of everything really is that we should have the Rutzen to serve Hashem and to want to have the Sichud with Hashem. That we have to develop the Rutzen. That's the hardest thing. That's the hardest thing. But that's the highest thing. So if once the Rutzen to serve Hashem, totally for Lishma, for His sake, totally consumes us, and that really is our major desire and push and motivation, and that's the thing that's really getting us going, as opposed to any other side, issues and motivations or whatever. That's what's going to happen when Mashiach comes, because first of all, it'll be revealed to us that there is nothing else. There is nothing to compete with Hashem. Hashem is everything.
So we become one with Hashem because we will align our will with His will.
Exactly right. Let's say that what we do for Him is with the same or greater involvement that when we do things for ourselves, and that we simply desire to do what He wants us to do, because there's no reason for us to do what He wouldn't want us to do. In other words, there's no reason. It once it becomes clear, this whole idea of clarity. When a person's really clear what's really going on, so nothing else makes sense. It's not only that we don't. That it's not something like we have to fight with ourselves at that point. When you're really at a level of clarity, that's the idea of moichin.
And check our exact
Exactly. What the problem is, the whole thing since the Cheder Tzadas, we don't clearly see what's true and what's false, what's good and what's bad. Besides the fact that the bad itself, even though we know it bad, it still has a point. That's another aspect of the Yetzer Hara. But the Yetzer Hara is particularly good at confusing us as to what is really good and what's really bad. Once that becomes clear, and we know that it's clear, it becomes clear that it's clear, right? The clarity becomes so obvious that there's nothing else that competes. So at the point, so then what happens at that point? The whole thing about the Yetzer Hara and the Sister Achra is that it's the resistance. It's trying to always get in between and complicate things or divert our attention to something else. Today they talk about today's generation is the generation of distracted people. People are extremely distracted. What does it mean? They're so busy with all these side things that they don't have the clarity to even know what's worth concentrating on. They don't even know where to put their attention. Right, it's like the brain dead. But it's not.
It's very sad though, because they have such stimulus pulling them one way.
Right.
It's overwhelming the brain.
Right, exactly. It's over. It's what do they call it? Overkill or something. It's like it's being overwhelmed with useless information, right? And yet they feel trapped, and they feel like they have
to keep it going. It's like a brainwashing. You should never know, but what's going on in the media and like Western culture, the TV. Commercials are exactly that. Commercials are 30 seconds of blurb, and then it's followed by something that's completely irrelevant to the previous 30 seconds, but it's trying to always push like an agenda. It's trying to promote things in a very subtle, sneaky way.
But not only that, the stuff that's in between isn't worth anything either.
Of course.
Not much any better.
Plus, children, which used to be 1 in 200,000, is now 1 in 10, born ADD or ADHD. They're from birth, they have an attention span of 7 seconds, and that's it.
Plus the autism and everything else.
And now look at you being interrupted with your little phone.
A little phone? I don't even have a smartphone.
Even you can't escape, Mr. Gutman.
Okay, you caught me. Okay, so anyway, so it'll be so obvious, and there's also another thing about, if I could bring in personal experience besides what I've learned in the Torah all the time, is this idea of the Eibishter is pashtus. The Eibishter is total simplicity. It's totally one in the sense of not being a worker. It's not even a put together of parts. Hashem is total pashtus. So the idea is that when you encounter that, when you experience that level of pashtus, it also makes you feel like there is nothing else. This idea of ein od milvado is not just that it's the whole thing, it's that it's total pashtus. It's one thing, there are no divisions within it. So even though it seems to be a contradiction in terms, if Hashem is coil everything, then you think it'd be put together of everything. It's not true. It's mamash. He is totally one thing. That's it. And that's something, again, you can't understand intellectually, but you can feel it. You can experience
the unity of God.
it. Exactly.
But why can't we understand it intellectually? We see everything is a creation from God. These stones, the electricity,
right, but you see, it looks like everything's different. It looks like everything's different. There's so many bechinas, and we see in the Kabbalah itself.
To the molecule level of the stone, they can somehow connect it to something else, that connects to something else, that connects to something else.
Okay, that's true. That is true. If we could somehow capture that kind of mentality, that kind of mindset.
Well, isn't the Kabbalah talk about the 4 elements, that everything is created from these 4 elements?
Right, but it's still 4. Right?
These 4
the Shem Havaya has 4 letters to it, right? And there's 10 spheres. And everything's numbers, right? It's all numbers. So how does it all get to be one thing? And not just one, but undivided.
1, 0, 0. The whole computer system is based on the binary system.
Right.
It's just a series of zeros and ones.
Yeah. Right. But it's still binary. So you shouldn't get that idea of Shtei Rishiyos. There's the whole idea that there's two domains, the ones and the zeros. That's also up, of course. Anyway, I was going to look at what time it was actually.
About 5 past.
Okay, about 5.
Shalom Aleichem.
Ainli klum can I know. Okay.
This year it's meant to be 1 hour duration,
Yes.
so it will end at 9:15.
Yeah.
Right.
You want to get your money's worth.
Although something that I have to change when we come back. No, even next week, because Amish was going next week.
All right.
We'll see. There's not next week. It's until after Pesach. After Pesach we're done.
When is the elections? Next week?
Next week.
Next Tuesday?
Otzma.
Otzma.
That's right.
Okay.
Otzma or Ayelet Shaked?
This is being taken, by the way. Be aware. Now you don't want certain people to know who you're voting for. Anyway.
I do.
Okay, Tess. Okay, so this is Lasois with Soincha. So it says it brings up a Maimah Chazal from Tona ben Lewi. Eza isha kisheira kol she'asas v'tzoin baal. What woman is a kusher woman? The one who does the rutzon of her husband. This is called the ketzer is rutzon. So he says that. So that's the whole idea, that the ultimate goal is that the two kings should share the same crown. In other words, they'll have the same roots. And that again, that's the whole thing why people we talk about this about how right? So that's the whole thing about Miyat HaYoreach. Why did the moon get small? Because she tiny. That how can two kings share the same crown? So Hashem said, okay, you don't think it can be done, so you be the little one, you be the smaller one, right? So there's Mamayat HaYoreach. It's the whole thing. It's also a subject for itself. So the point is that the only way that they can share the same crown is if they're both bottled completely. Once they share the same rutzen, then there's no competition and there's no two entities. It's both essentially the same entity. So now there's no competition, there's no problem, there's no steer. So that's really the reason. So people say, how can you talk about women being on the same level as men? And it's a terrible thing. But how can it happen when Mashiach comes? Because nobody's going to have an ego anymore. There's not going to be this feeling like I'm on top or he's on top or competition and fighting around like who's going to be bigger. That's what caused the shvira to begin with. Because everybody is Ani Emlich, I want to be the king. I want to be the king. So as long as there's that kind of mentality, I want to be something, and I want people to look at me, or I want to be on top, and I don't want to be told what to do, and this kind of thing. That's the whole problem. That's the whole thing. The Rutzen becomes fragmented, and that's why we can't have that. We have to have a hierarchy as long as we're in that mentality, because there has to be a one on top and coming down. But once we're bottled to that extent, which is really has to happen once Hashem reveals himself to that extent. There's not going to be Bechir anymore. There's not going to be Yitzhahora anymore. There's not going to be anything. Nothing can survive in that environment, because the whole environment is based on illusion and on darkness and on deception and this kind of thing, which can't exist in that. So once there is no more of that, then it's all. Then you could have two kings. You could have male and female aspects being side by side as opposed to being one underneath.
So there's a duality, but no duality. It's a unity.
Right. It's ultimate unity. That's the miracle of creation is that despite the fact that everything is one, Hashem created Zocher and Nekeva, which seems to be two, but really it's two that merge into one. So it's really one. It's supposed to be one.
Who was the great rabbi who ascended to heaven and he saw the angel Mem Tes Tes?
Yeah.
And he was convinced this was Hashem. He said there are two gods in heaven. And he came down a kofa. Yes, that's right.
That was
he saw the angel Mem Tes Tes.
Rabbi Akiva was okay.
Right, only he survived it.
But he was convinced.
Yeah.
Were two.
Well, if you don't have the Tehillim and you're not on the ability to feel it, then you...
Elisha ben Nathuriah?
Each one reacted differently.
One went mad.
Akiva was the only one, but Ben Azai died, and then the Zohar went crazy and something like that. But in either case, what's interesting, I just learned in this last parsha about, actually, Shalom brings down Vayikra, amazing thing, that really there's 4 times that this happened, that the Shikris ended up leading to Misa. Intoxication led to death. Okay. The first one was by the Chet Adam Rishon, where Chava squeezed the grapes, right? So that led death into it to begin with. The second time was by Noach, death, but he also got involved with grapes, right? And then there's the Maisa with Nadav and Avihu.
With what?
Nadav and Avihu. Nadav and Avihu. They went into this mikdash intoxicated, having drunk at least. and then they ended up dying. And then the fourth one was this Arvanitzis Lepardis. Arvanitzis Lepardis was also that Bechina, and also one died. So it's a certain. I mean, you can go very far with this, but the idea is that there's a certain desire of very big people to access a level which is not necessarily appropriate. You know, they're on such a high level and have such a desire to get closer that they break through the boundaries and they get to a point which is dangerous. And that's why you have to be very, very special to survive that. So the key was on that level.
Have you heard a statement that Elisha ben Avuya was going to be the Mashiach?
No,
I heard this recently. He was destined to be Mashiach.
Pretty big person. The mayor continued to learn from him even after that.
Yeah.
He was Acher.
He was able to separate out.
An analogy that
Heretical Mashiach. That's one for the books.
Like the Shabtai, 3 generations.
Damien Omen 3, the Antichrist.
Right. He was.
his rebbe was like, he had to be able to, he still lived Lacher even though after the whole incident. And like, they use it as an analogy that he was able to taste the wine, but not take the cask, leave the cask, leave the
Sediment. Okay. Bisati. I was just going to get to this. So the Besoich Meyai. So it says the Chasudim are the kindness, the love, and all that is illuminating within my innards, so to speak. Meya. The Chasudim are the Zion besoich the Zeranpim. This is the highest of the Zeranpim of the six spheres is the Chasudim. Which makes sense. The whole energy flow is kind of a chesed, right, inside of chesed. So the chesed is like infusing that whole stature of Zeranpim, which is the six spheres, and eventually it like flows into. I keep getting this image of a river of light. Because it's a flow. It's not just light. This light is not static. It moves. It's a flow of light. That flow of the highest that goes into from one level to another level. So here it represents chesed is that light, this flowing light, and it goes all the way down until it infuses the malchus, and then it's mamtik the gvura, because that's chesed itself. So chesed is obviously going to be the opposite of gvura, so it's going to be mamtik the gvura. It's going to transform that. So Bisarti tzedek like din. Bisarti is a lotion of bosar, or flesh. And so it says that my bosar was tzedek was idea of din. Ra'ati b'kol rav. And now it got transformed into kol rav. The kol is the matri of Chamisha Pomim provides 5 times Havaya with the 5 Havayas. I'm not sure what that means. So that's the 5 Chasudim, which come from the meat of Rav Chesed. Rav Chesed from the right? So the idea of Rav here is talking about Chesed, and it's Hine Sefusai Loi Echlo. Sefusai is talking about Netzach Hoid Yisoid. The lips are corresponding to Netzach and Hoid. This is again the legs, which are now going down into Movis, which again they have this negative aspect of going into an aspect of death. But now, because of all this thing that's turning around, so now they're going to be. So it's now asking him loy echlo, that it should not be this fusai, even the level of these lower levels that could go into a whole negative space. Instead, we're asking that Hashem should not allow that to happen. Because instead, Atul Hashem Atal Yudato is again to create the zivig. The Deya is just referring to the zivig. It's the yichud. Again. So then Hashem brings that about. So now we'll be able to create and this ultimate zivig will be able to take place. This ultimate yichud of Zatan the Keva.